2, 1. Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow in Pit Lane's regular get-together Wednesday night live to have chat about all things motorsport, and it's a big week of motorsport here in Melbourne, of course. Grand Prix City Melbourne, the Australian Formula One Grand Prix, kicks off tomorrow with the racing, some qualifying and practice for the support categories, and then, of course, Friday, the Formula One cars hit the Albert Park track for the first time. And looking at a fairly mild weekend weather-wise after the recent burst of really hot weather that we've had. It's going to be a lot more sufferable. In fact, it's going to be quite cool. I think tomorrow they're only forecasting about 19 degrees or something, so it'll be quite a cool day and a cool weekend. But anyway, we're short-staffed again tonight because of the Grand Prix. Pete's getting ready to be up early in the morning to head out to Albert Park for his regular pilgrimage to the track. Doc might join us at some stage if he recovers. Doc's had like a 12-hour work day today. They sprung it on him and said, "We need you to work. We need you to work till 5. We need you to work from 5 a.m." This morning, and he said, "Well, when do I finish?" And they said, "Oh, probably about 6 p.m. tonight." So, in fact, he was saying after last night's taping of this week's In Pit Lane, he was thinking about not actually going home. He was just going to find somewhere to park the car near Albert Park and just sleep in the car, because by the time he'd driven home after the show, and then it's about a 90-minute drive, and then he had to drive back at sort of 4 o'clock in the morning. He thought it's probably not worth even bothering going to bed. So don't know whether he did that or not, but he has sent us some photos, and we might run a few of those of some of the setup out there. Speaking of the people who have turned up, though, we've got Mark Jones from all the way from Queensland, where they don't have the Grand Prix, and they don't even have IndyCar anymore, which is very
neither.
Sad. No, very sad. IndyCar was a great event.
Yeah, we had a great time.
We every year was a fabulous event with the Gold Coast Indy. It was spectacularly good.
And yours were prettier than mine. I was going to say yours were prettier than mine too.
Let's not go. What happens on the Gold Coast stays up the Gold Coast. And hello to Nurse Betty if she's watching.
Yes. Yeah. Where were we?
What goes on the high-rise balconies stays on the high-rise balconies.
Yeah, well, that was a feature, wasn't it? I mean, the gold. I don't know what it's like. I think it's very much cleaned up nowadays compared to the IndyCar days. You don't sort of see or hear about the displays of excess that we used to see on the Gold Coast balconies in the good old days. Dare I say it? I don't know. Yeah, it was quite wild. I remember saying to the IndyCar chaplain about some of the sights and sounds around, and he said, I keep my nose down and I look at the ground and remember particularly suitable pieces of verse. Yeah, so.
And cold weather.
Yeah, so that was fun and games. What a great event it was. But so anyway, also comments. Welcome to Box. He's saying, and Gemini saying hello to Box. So there we go. And there we go. Speaking of early mornings, Naggers is with us again, and yes, pre 4 a.m. wake up to. That's what Doc's up to tomorrow, and that's what Pete's up to as well. I think Pete's. Pete was sort of planning to be up around 4:30, 5 o'clock to be get ready to head out to Albert Park. So a very, very early start for a lot of the officials. And let us not forget, that's why they pay them the big mo. No, they don't pay them, anything at all.
Wow, 4 o'clock. Wow.
Yes, it's and they've been out there today as well. A lot of them. So
I wonder what the preferred.
Sorry, Mark.
I wonder what the preferred alarm clock is: a bucket of cold water or an exposed wire.
I just couldn't do it. I remember many years ago, I was actually offered a spot on morning radio here in Melbourne and the money was, of course, very, very good. But I said, look, they don't print enough money that'd get me out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning every single morning to go in and do that. So I never ever did. So that was my chance at morning at breakfast radio. Notoriety was thrown out the window because no, there's
What station?
Hell. This is how long ago it was. It was 3DB.
Oh yeah, of course. And they're racing this time. They're away. They jump well.
Well, they had the reason it came up. It was actually, I can sort of say the thing that it was my role was going to be as their sort of sports reporter, because it was Tim Smith and Christine Keogh from the Comedy Company, and I used to play theatre sports with both of them, and it was around the time that. Yeah, sort of I was involved in sort of doing a bit of motorsport journalism, and I just finished my first unit, so it would have been sort of late-ish 80s. So it was sort of the last gasp of 3DB. I think they were rebranding or something, but I don't know whether the show ever actually went to air. I certainly don't remember it, but they were putting together sort of the wacky morning crew sort of thing, and it was like, hey, we need a sports guy. Would you be interested? And I went, what time would it? And they said, it's 5 a.m. And I was like, yeah, no, not interested.
Could have done it remotely.
Yeah, could have been.
Sorry, a bit. Sorry, wrong time zone.
Yeah,
wrong
could
period
have been
in history.
I'd have probably, and if I'd have done it, I'd have been where Doug is right now. So
where is he?
He's very quiet these days. I mean, and you can visit him and put some flowers on the.
Oh.
So yeah. So, but anyway, that's that was long ago and far away. Let's talk, I suppose, about the Grand Prix. As I said, it seems to be. I don't know. Like we'll find out from Mark from the interstate perspective. Richard, does it seem to you that it's an absolute sellout? It's just total. I mean, there are no. If you're thinking of going, if you're saying, "Oh, I think I might pop around there on Thursday or Friday or something," you can't. It's totally. There are no tickets available at the gates. If you don't have a ticket now, you don't have a ticket. It's that. It's a sellout. It's ridiculous. But. Despite that, it seems to be very, very low key. I haven't seen, it seems to be the Gunther Steiner show. That seems to be the big news. I've seen Gunther is everywhere, but he's the only one.
But no, they've been advertising all sorts of things. They've been advertising food. They've been advertising drinks. They've been advertising cosmetics. They can get your hair done. You can have special meals prepared. Special cocktails. There's 1.5 miles, I heard them quote, of food stalls. What else is happening? The race. Yes, the race. Sorry, it's a car race.
They have certainly targeted the marketing this year. I think we said last week that they've really, really targeted the marketing. Any stuff that I've seen, around the shopping centres or online or on the little bit of television that I've watched. The marketing has been very heavy. Come for this great part. There's music and fun and fashion, and it's all very glamorous, and there's cocktails and all that. Oh, and by the way, there is a race on at some stage, but you don't have to worry about that.
They're not running the old motors; they're running hybrid motors, so you can barely hear them. So they won't interrupt your drinking.
They won't interrupt your drinking, your chats, and your drinking.
That's right.
As we see, yes, is there live music? My God, there's live music concerts on. I think every night there's some bloody live from people that I've never ever heard about that. Box saying not enough talk of Formula 2 and Formula 3. And I mean even the supercars aren't particularly happy as well. They've been shoved out to the wilds, and they've had to put up extra fencing because they didn't want the hoi polloi just wandering through looking at. So they've set up their own sort of fortress to keep the rat
unwashed
rat pack out, the great unwashed out. So they're very annoyed.
That kind of sounds like the IndyCar format, but more on that later.
Yeah, well, that was always the great thing. I said last week that it was the difference between the way the media were treated by the IndyCar people and the way they were treated by the supercar people. I remember, I think I don't know whether I mentioned it last week, but there was an American television crew that wanted to do like a background sort of color piece on the supercars and to sort of say, like, hey, here we are in Australia, and it's not just the Indy cars. There's these things, and this is, we have NASCAR, but in Australia they have supercars, and they're amazing. And they went in and said, oh, we'd like to do a story, and it was like, oh, would you? Okay, that'll be $10,000, thank you. And it was like, no, we just want to do a news story, guys. But yeah, that's okay. That'll be $10,000, thank you. Oh, US dollars. They just said, hey, you know what you can do with your $10,000. They weren't. I think it was for the old Speed Network, and they were not impressed. They just said, how do you deal with these people? And I said, yeah, well, unfortunately, we don't.
Secret Service.
I believe it was a supercars decision. That's what I've been told, that it was a decision by. So that was one of the arguments when they were being moved out. It was, how do we keep the public out? We don't want the public into our garage. We're not going to be like the Carrera Cup or any of the other support races they've had on over the years. We want to keep the public need to be controlled. They need to be kept out of our. Because of course, as we know, everybody's going to Albert Park for the supercars. I mean, so it's got nothing to do with the Grand Prix or Formula 2 or Formula 3 or even the concerts or the food. Everybody's going for the supercars. Even the Formula 1, even the European media are coming for the supercars, and they're lining the fence.
Off top, do you remember the two Formula 2 and 3 race last year? Absolutely amazing. They were
great
races.
Yeah.
The best races of the weekend.
They sounded better than the. They sounded better. I mean, at trackside, I went on the Friday, and the Formula 2 and Formula 3 sounded so much better than Formula 1. They were really they sounded great. They looked great. The racing was close. They were spitting flames. They were just terrific. Yeah, terrific racing. Certainly a highlight. If you're going, I've always said Fridays. If you're only going on one day, I think Friday is the best day to go, because you get the Formula 1, you get Formula 2 and Formula 3, plus you get your Supercar and Carrera Cup races. So I would say if you're going to Albert Park at any stage over the weekend and you didn't go last year, don't think of Formula 2 and Formula 3 as, that'll be the time to pop over to one of the 46 miles of food, man. No. You make sure you're at trackside, right down towards the bottom of the sweeper at the of what was sort of the back straight as they go into that sort of complex there. I don't know the numbers, but yeah, as they come round the sweeper and then go into the braking area there, they were spectacular, and you could get up really close with the with a general admission pass. So check that out over the weekend. Formula 2 and Formula 3, but very, very quiet. I haven't even had anything from them in terms of media releases, and I usually get stuff. Whether they might be putting that out tomorrow, but I haven't heard much at all.
Got me thinking now about. Of course, like in the last couple of years, we've had in Formula 2 and Formula 3, we've had Aussies coming through the ranks of F2 and F3, but I think that's less of an issue now.
We've still got a couple. We've still Christian Mansell, of course. He's coming off of a podium from the last race, so he'll be one of the. Someone to look out for, and one of the favourites. Unfortunately, our mate Hugh Barter, who did quite well at times at Melbourne last year. Unfortunately, Hugh isn't racing. The last time I haven't spoken to Hugh, but I spoke to someone from his team who basically said that it was the same old thing. It was money. His main sponsor. was still very much committed to getting him back into the series, but it was a case of they needed to. Last year was pretty tough, and they were sort of they were concentrating on their core business this year before sort of hopefully getting back into motorsport later in the year or sometime next year. But unfortunately for Hugh, what was he'd come through that success in French Formula 4 and Spanish Formula 4. Jumped into Formula 3, but sort of right before the end of the year, sort of the dollars ran out. So is Smith? Is it Tommy Smith? Is he racing again?
Not in Formula 2.
Oh, okay.
So he's having a look at the while we've been talking. Pop over to look at the. He is in F3 again.
F3 again. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of
scored points at the opening round at Bahrain, so he's got some work to do. The Christian Mansell, as you say, has already had a podium so far this year, but there's no Jack Doohan like we had last year.
Yeah, nothing in
front
Formula 2.
F2 driver.
So he's wandering around trying to get the sign on with a team. Yeah,
and I think he's probably trying to sign it. Well, he will be in action on the weekend. He'll be driving one of the older Formula 1 cars, I think. I forget which one, but he's going to be out on track with his old man. His old man's going to throw his leg over again and do a few laps, and Jack's going to accompany him on four wheels. So Jack will be out on the track on the weekend, and of course probably keeping his fingers crossed that perhaps Ocon or Gasly goes down with appendicitis. Speaking of which, Carlos Sainz is running around. Was seen around Melbourne, apparently looking bright and fit and healthy. So Carlos will be racing on the weekend. At this stage,
been given some motivation to get back in the car quickly.
Yeah. Has he ever? Yes. I mean, well. I mean, he's really sort of this is his big audition year in terms of finding another drive for next year when Lewis wanders over and joins the team. So he's it'd be interesting to see whether he's being sort of considered for the Red Bull drive and instead of Sergio, or whether they get the other person who's under a bit of pressure, of course, is Daniel Ricciardo. It's interesting that over the weekend that Liam Lawson sort of made some very pointed comments in Adelaide, which were along the lines of, I had a couple of races myself last year, and I beat my teammate, so. I think that it was just pointing out, and apparently according to the story that I read, whether it's true or not, you never know with these things, but the story sort of went along is that Helmut Marko definitely wanted Liam Lawson in that car, and it was pretty much overruled by Christian Horner, who wanted Daniel in the car. So I imagine that Daniel is now sort of putting out vibes. He's kept a much lower profile than usual, and he's basically said that I've got to be serious. It's like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. He understands that he's under a lot of pressure, and he really does need to get out there and start stringing a few really good results together, or otherwise he's going to be in all sorts of there. Jack's in the Benetton. Yes. Which I'm assuming is the one that ran at Adelaide. Speaking of Adelaide,
of them, actually.
Yeah, there are a couple. Speaking of Adelaide, Roy was at Adelaide. You'll see some of his footage tomorrow night on In Pit Lane from the Adelaide Motorsport Festival. Got some fantastic stuff out there of the Benetton and of all the cars that were out there. The Mazda, unfortunately, the Mazda Le Mans car was very much constrained by limits. They were all very much constrained by limits.
Noise.
Well, I think Roy was saying all of the cars were under sort of very strict rev limits. I mean, Roy can let us know, but they were under very strict, and they certainly weren't pushing it particularly hard. It was fairly leisurely. They're lovely cars, but yeah, it's a bit like the Goodwood Festival of Speed without the real competitive section. Because the thing about Goodwood is a great event, fantastic event that you'd go to once, but is it really sort of a motorsport event? It's like, oh, look at, there's cars cruising up and down the hill, and there is that sort of that one section of timed, of timed hill climb challenge, which is actually competitive, but none of the top Formula One cars or anything like that get involved in that. They just sort of go up. They might do a few burnouts. I don't know whether they did any burnouts. Roy had some stuff with the super van, the electric car. It did some burnouts. Thankfully, the smoke was coming from the tyres and not from anywhere else on it. Because, I mean, if you're at Albert Park on the weekend and the super van starts smoking, if it's not coming from the tyres, get ready with your camera, because it will be spectacular and it will take a long time to put it out.
It'll take them even more time to fill the holes on the road.
Yeah, Roy's saying it's under regularity things, and it says that the days of the speed may be over, and that's the problem. The regularity, yeah. Well, that's good that a few didn't listen. I mean, we thank those few partially deaf people who did that. But it was very successful, and they've already announced the interesting thing is they've already announced the date for next year, and which gives you an indication that probably that's the first weekend of March, which is probably an indication that the second weekend of March is going to be the Australian Grand Prix. That provides a bit of a problem for the Historic Racing Register with the Phillip Island, because normally that's the weekend of the Phillip Island Historic. And they have always had the Phillip Island Historic the week before, or a couple of weeks before the Grand Prix. Next year they might have to have it after the Grand Prix, because unless they want to have it the same weekend as Adelaide, and that might be something that an option for them to say, look, okay, we're going to lose cars to Adelaide, but so be it, because we want to be the week before the Grand Prix.
I was trying to think from I suppose a few vehicles did the Phillip Island Historics and the Adelaide Festival, but not as many as perhaps I thought might.
Yeah, there were a few. There were some people who missed there. I know I spoke to Graham Whincup at Rob Roy. So this is how it's been such a packed program in terms of historic racing, because you had the Rob Roy revival. And then the week after you had Phillip Island, and the week after that you've got Adelaide, and then there's a handful of cars that are going to be in demonstration laps, although they've cut down that a lot. It's not the numbers that they used to be. They're specifically targeting McLaren because it's the 50th anniversary of McLaren. So there's a 60th. Not sure now. I think it might be 60th, but anyway, it's happy birthday, McLaren. Should know because I did a story on it on last week's show. But yeah, so there's a few of the McLarens are staying over, but the other New Zealand 5000s that normally would hang around, and a lot of those cars that would run around at Albert Park are apparently not running there this year. And they've got very little. The thing about Formula 2 and Formula 3 coming on board is there's very, very little time for those sort of display events that they used to have, back in the old days, because it's a packed program now.
Yes, well, is a V8 supercar. Sorry, I was just going to say is a V8. Some of the things they used to have was a V8 supercar faster than an RX. Ford Escort or.
Well, thankfully we got rid of the bloody celebrity race. I mean, because I always thought that was a bloody embarrassment. That was sort of saying, hey, look, anybody can do this. You look like your favourite soap opera star. Yeah, well, we'll throw him or her into a car and they can go. Anybody can go racing because it's not a real sport.
Well, I guess the Drive to Survive effect has turned the drivers into celebrities. So there's Yeah, more so than they would have been considered in the past. So that's
and
helped in
people like
the public cut through.
I think Gunther has got his show on in Melbourne tonight, and somebody said that I think Pete said it was something like $600 a ticket for the VIP sort of meet and greet thing, and it's sold out as well. He put on a second gig. So yeah, he's incredibly popular. He's become more popular than a lot of the drivers. So it's amazing what you can get by just by just having a foul mouth and not being afraid to do it on television. Try that.
Hello to Latrell Mitchell, just by the by. But anyway, that's a whole other story from a whole other sport.
Yeah, so yeah, sort of, and also as say, also B grade celebrity talent. It was that at the end. It was very. Unfortunately, they didn't get down to D grade celebrities because I might have got a gig then. But unfortunately,
I can just see you getting in and out through the roll cage.
Yeah, that's going to be yes, that would have been really fun.
They've got a 10-second rule now, don't you?
Yeah, yes. Well, I need a 10-day rule. The Phillip Island also had World Superbikes in February. Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, it's just the summer is this time of year is so packed, and then you've got all the stuff that's happening in New Zealand. It's got because it's their main. They've got the Toyota. Yeah, they've got the Toyota Racing Series. They've got a number of the Scope Classic, and a number of major events that they run, of course, over January and February. It's a great time to go down there. Actually, I'm sort of thinking if I can. I wouldn't mind I think I said it last week or so, if I could head back, whether I do sort of, the 12-hour next year or whether I spend that time and money heading over to New Zealand again, because I went once. It was fantastic. Went to Hampton Downs, but I had
so want to go there.
Yeah, well, this was the opening. This was the opening meeting that went over there, and it was a fabulous meeting. Unfortunately, sort of ruined by me falling over and breaking something else. So, as Richard would well remember, because he had to get my car back from the airport because I couldn't drive it home.
You walked to a wrecker's yard now. If they got one of those big magnets, you'd go ping straight up and stick to it.
Well, the thing is, I'm sort of disappointed that with the metal I've got there, it doesn't set off the. It doesn't actually set off the alarm in the. I was sort of looking forward to that, but.
And when you go through security,
Barasheen stories of setting off alarms.
Yeah, so he had plenty. Yeah, so I got 13. This is for 1,300. This is for Good Steiner's show. $1,300 meet and greet, $600 for the front row, $300 regular ticket. As he said, if you went to Adelaide, you got it for free. So that's probably a good reason to go to Adelaide. And you also got Ozzy Valtteri as well, who's now officially an honorary Australian because Speed Cafe gave him something, or so I'm unaware that Speed Cafe has been sort of authorised to provide dual citizenship by the Australian government, but they're pretty much capable of anything at Speed Cafe. So there you go. Apart from independent news, which they don't do at all. But anyway, that was the Adelaide. It seemed to be very popular, and a lot of people would go back there. I did the first one quite a few years ago, and it was quite fun, but it was much smaller than it is now. And it does have the potential to be the Goodwood of Australia. It's got that vibe about it, and with mainstream manufacturers getting involved, I would imagine that they could make it even bigger. So. Yeah, they always do it well in Adelaide. I'll give them that. They always do any motorsport that they've done that I've been involved with. They've done extremely well. Now, well, apart from anything else we want to say about the Grand Prix before we move on,
I'm really looking forward to it. As
last year was interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean I'm not sure now. I haven't checked on the television. I know that Channel 10. covering Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and so it's KO. I haven't seen anything. I'm assuming tomorrow that KO and Fox will have coverage.
KO's got it tomorrow from
It has got
about
it tomorrow.
12 or 11 or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, you can certainly tune in for tomorrow, and basically, make a weekend of it. If you can't go there, go out and buy your own. Go to your local restaurant and get some good takeaway or something, and a few bottles of wine, and have your own Grand Prix weekend. That's it'll be a lot cheaper than going there and paying sort of $17 for a pie or something.
Oh, imagine how much it is going to cost at the concession stands.
Oh, yeah, although I must admit I was surprised last year. I mean, the drinks were expensive. Drinks were like a can of beer last year was $11. And I'm not, as you know, I'm not a beer drinker. So I was on the spirits, and they were $15 and $16. I did find there was one.
That's not that much more expensive than what you pay at the footy, though. So comparable.
Well, see, I haven't been to the footy. It's probably been sort of at least 15 years since I've been to the footy. So so I imagine it's probably around the same silly price. Yeah, but I did find there was one place.
I had heard a rumor that that concessionaires were changing their changing the boards with the prices on it to Bitcoin from dollars.
That wouldn't surprise me actually. There was one place last year that was selling like a food van that was selling cocktails. Martinis, and it was a sort of a pop-up martini bar, and they were actually good value considering how much sort of booze you got out of it. And I think they were about $18, but when you consider the quality of the drink, that was pretty good value. The food was pretty good, but all I want to do when I go to any sporting event is I want a couple of drinks and a pie. And I was really annoyed one year that I went to the Grand Prix and I wandered around and you couldn't get a pie for lunch. Now, what sort of Australian sporting event does not have, at least for sale, a basic, straightforward 4 and 20 pie? And so, $24 hamburger. That's
yep. I do remember when I went corporate at the Grand Prix many years ago, the ticket incorporated food and alcohol, and technically I thought it was going to be delivered to the box that you're in, but no, you had to walk downstairs and you got the second-rate stuff. I thought this is a bit tough because they had the big fridge full all the top wine sitting right there, which was all zip tied so you couldn't get it, but you had 3 mechanics there and some hangers on, and they all had little screwdrivers undoing the zip ties, getting the best booze and pulling the zip ties back on again. And they'd come in and they'd go, they could see it, they're not stupid, they can count. and they're vigorously checking the zip ties to see they're working. I'm going, yeah, they work all right, mate.
Yeah,
I suppose you have to be able to learn to get around engine seals.
Yes.
No, I couldn't do that.
Very much. Not on the Excel. Definitely not. But anyway, I just think for some reason it just seems to be. It might be. I mean, because we're not on the media list anymore. I mean, we were on the media list for most of the time until about sort of 4 years ago, and then we were off the media list. And then last year, sort of when we had Andrew Westacott back on the show again, he said, you have to get back on the list, and we were back on for, I think, about 4 days. Then we sort of disappeared again. So I'm not going to chase them. I mean, the point is, there was a time, and I think, Richard, you probably ended up on a couple of these with us. I mean, there was a time where Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, it was just wall-to-wall Grand Prix events and lots of opportunities to catch up with drivers for one-on-one interviews all over Melbourne. It was it was full on, because now they're just not doing that anymore, and they don't need to, because it's a sellout. I suppose you could argue in terms of, like, why aren't we seeing all of the publicity, the great publicity stunts we talked about last week? Probably because they just don't need to, because they don't need to get anybody else through the gates. They can't fit anybody else in through the gates. They're saying today, if you don't have a ticket, don't come.
I do. Mark, sorry.
No, you go. Richard.
I was just going to say that once upon a time, on Wednesday, late Wednesday afternoon, all the containers and the F1 cars would arrive in pit lane to be unpacked. The moment they did that, they sealed off pit lane. However, I was a marshal at the time, and I had a vest, but marshals weren't allowed in there. But the marshals on the gate didn't know that. And so if you look like you should be there, you could just wander straight through as they were unpacking everything. And did you get the best photos ever of Formula Ones? You can stand over the top of them. I did that for a number of years in a row until wasn't a marshal anymore, which I probably don't miss that much, but it was
actually
fun.
Speaking of photos from the Grand Prix, as I said, Doc has been working at the Grand Prix and doing stuff, and he sends through some photos to me today, which I threw together. Now the problem is when I run this, because it's a movie, it kills all of our audio, so we can't But this is I'll just run it because there's nothing to start, but it just gives you a bit of an idea of some of mostly the sort of around the Porsches and the things setting up there. So this is what Doc had. What Doc sent to us today, some of it. Actually, I think we can talk, actually, because
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, so there you go. So it was so it's Dylan O'Keefe's car. There's Mark Sinney and the Carrera Cup guys sort of setting up the GT4. That's an interesting the e-Power GT4, and there's the Toyota with the new Yaris, the WRC2 car that they're showing off this weekend. So it's quite the event down there. And he also sent us a lot of photos of the some of the bars and restaurants and things being set up. But we'll give them a miss. But yeah, but obviously, I imagine right now he's probably comatose after his huge day, and he's got another sort of 4 or 5 to go. Speaking of which, it's interesting. The supercars very much sort of pushed into the background. Once again, the topic has come up about what like the long-term future of the sport, and Mark Rushbrook from Ford has yet again sort of piped up, and he's said very strongly that Ford would be very, very keen to see supercars go further and further down the NASCAR path. He would like to see he sees great benefits, obviously, for Ford in being able to. He said, they're both running Mustangs. Both the series run Mustangs and at the moment Camaros. Just in terms of economy of scale, if you want to have cars that are affordable, and cars that are affordable for more teams to race and for more races, and cars that are basically built to do more races, why don't you head down the NASCAR route? Then it's interesting that a couple of the teams, including Brad Jones, have come out and said, no, we definitely do not want that.
Australian circuits aren't suited to NASCAR. Just
that's one of it. Yeah, that's one of the things, that the curbing and all of the suspension and everything. It's just and Bathurst and all that. They would just not be. Although we've raced NASCARs at Bathurst before, and they seem to be okay, but certainly not as fast as the supercars are. But they're much closer today than they were. I don't think the idea. I can see a lot of benefit in the engines. I've always wondered why they need to reinvent the wheel by building their own bloody engines when they've got, they can get crate engines out of America for about $30,000 or something. Why not use them? So, but they were very keen. They said Brad said that, no, we're very keen to just basically keep things the way they are, and we're not keen on the NASCAR route at all. But it's interesting that every time that Mark Rushbrook sort of opens his mouth, it's sort of saying something about, supercars are good, but it could be a lot better, could be a lot more attractive to Ford. Interesting. Interesting that Toby Price and KTM parting company. That's really that was a shock. I mean, the Dakar Rally winner and sort of one of the legends of the sport, and KTM have decided not to renew his contract. That came out of left field.
I suppose you're only as good as your last race and all that, and and Toby's had a couple of. Look, I'm not as across the rally raid as I would like, but certainly there's his results at the Dakar haven't been been what they was. I'm sure that someone's about to whack me over the head.
You still got top tens.
But I suppose the expectation is that KTM aren't interested in top tens.
Yeah. I suppose he wasn't making. Anyway, I don't think the Dakar, ever since it moved to Saudi Arabia, is anything like it was in South America. It was a brilliant event, South America, and it's not generating much further. If you certainly from the spec, it's still getting some, but I don't think it really has the energy that it had when it was in South America.
Well, I don't think it's quite as. Yeah, I think it was a bit like the Tour de France and all. I mean, you'd have a different sort of route every year, and it would take you through different countries and all. Now it's sort of it's more constrained within that area in Saudi Arabia and around the Middle East. I don't think it's as sort of culturally diverse as it used to be, and I don't think there's the range of different conditions that there quite was in the old days. I mean, especially when it was the Paris Dakar, that was a hell of a challenge, but it just become too dangerous for a whole bunch of non-motorsport reasons. So that was very different. It's interesting, Roy, that news that will replace Camaro. The head of motorsport for General Motors has basically said the replacement for the Camaro, at least in NASCAR, will be the Camaro. He said we're still selling it. He said we're not making it anymore, but he said we're still selling it, and basically until you can't get them anymore, we will continue to race the Camaro. He said what replaces it from that point is we'll announce back then, but at the moment the intention for NASCAR at least is to continue racing the Camaro up and at least certainly for next year and possibly into the future as well. So, and you would imagine that supercars would probably hang on even longer. Doesn't really matter because you can't get a Camaro here anyway. Speaking of Camaros. That's a good segue for something. SS Media, who do great sort of great graphics and that sort of thing for a lot of our top teams, posted on their Facebook page this afternoon. We've seen the Mark or the IRC Mustangs and the sort of pseudo Mercedes come through the ICGT, but they're now building a Camaro in inverted commas based car, and I'll pop that up there. So there it is. There, fairly strange, sort of looking. It looks more like a Mustang to me from the side, but with basically Camaro lights strapped onto it and a Camaro front end. But that glass house section looks awfully a lot like a Mustang.
Well, yeah, I think it looks all right. I mean, it's not. I mean, I suppose one of the problems with the is the Camaro. The back end of the Camaro is rather short compared to the Mustang. So, like the glass goes.
The interesting thing is, he said on in the post is these are all heading to America.
Oh,
Yeah, so he said
oh,
he
cool.
said, yeah, so obviously there's something, there's some sort of series being planned for there. But yeah, I mean they're a good car. And I would like to see they've done the sports sedan version, the Mustang, and it has made life very interesting. I know with one of the Mazda bodied Mark cars in sports sedans, Warren Cleland is running one after running his own sort of home built car for years, and he just said, "Look, it's chalk and cheese." He said to get into something as professional as this, he said it's ultimate. He said ultimately, he said it's easier to drive, it's more reliable, and ultimately it's probably going to turn out to be possibly even cheaper than running these in terms of the old car, which like his own homemade car, is a car which sort of broke regularly and had some issues. But it's an interesting looking car, that's for sure. And heading to America. So that's what it looks like. That's the new.
I wonder if I imagine it's. I could see that these cars would do great business revitalizing the top tier of Trans Am in the US. I don't think that that's what they're going over for, but I could really see that would be something that could really benefit from it. Like the grids of TA1, if you like, have been dwindling in recent times. It's rare that they get more than a dozen at a time, and the TA1s. I mean, they're not called TA1s; they're Trans Am, but I'm just using TA1 to distinguish it from TA2 and our own local versions of Trans Am here, based on the TA2 concept. But there's also, in the past, they were called TA3 and TA4, and they're now called, well, one's called GT, and I'm forgetting what the other one's called. There's
they've changed the
anyway,
names.
They the third and fourth tier of Trans Am race with the top tier.
And that includes a lot of GT3 cars and Carrera Cup cars and that sort of thing. So it's a bit like so it's a bit like a run what you brung. It's all of their races are televised on YouTube on the their Speed Series YouTube channel. You'll see all of the Trans Am races are live or they're available on demand. And the top level cars are fearsomely fast. They're spectacular cars. But they certainly don't have the fields that they used to, and they've lost a lot of the top competitors over the years have sort of dropped out. So
TA2 has the growth of TA2 has stolen so much of the thunder out of the Trans Am series that and there's no trouble seeing why. TA2 is a brilliant package.
And sports sedans.
That's what I was going to say. You took the words right out of my mouth. As it's done with sports sedans in Australia.
Did you see Calder? Not Calder, Winton. The field looked like a very impressive improved production round.
Well, they had the problem for the state round was you had the national series running down at Simmons Plain. So you had a couple of Victorian cars, Graham Gilliland and a few of those guys were down there. Michael Robinson, who still races the occasional state round, but he's basically national series now. But also you had on the same weekend, you had although this was the thing, you had Super TT racing at Calder as part of the VMRC. So at the same, as I said last week, on the same weekend that the Victorian State Race Series are hiring Winton from the Benalla Auto Club to race their CAMS Victorian State Series, the AASA hiring Calder to basically run a meeting in opposition to them. The interesting thing was, if you talk about, they say it takes 2 cars to make a race. The Super TT races at at Calder Park were 2 cars. that was it. That was the field for them. About the only the XLs had quite good fields, and also the new Australian Drivers' Championship, as it were, for the hyper races. They had a pretty good field. They had about 16 cars, and our mate Ricky Capo jumped in, did an Oliver Behrman there, because the regular driver of one of the cars took crook, and Ricky sort of jumped in for the weekend and ended up winning the races and taking the lead in the series. So whether he gets the opportunity to continue that for the rest of the year, but for what it's worth, they're calling it the Australian Drivers' Championship. They own the rights to that title now, so that's what they're calling it. And once again, they look really good. The hyper races, the racing seemed to be very close from what I heard. I didn't get out there. I was actually going to go out to do a story on. They had the Drift Academy out there, and I was going to go out to do that, but the whole of Melbourne was shut down for a bloody fun run. And I looked at the map. I looked at Google Maps to see like an alternate route to get across to Calder, and it said estimated travel time 2.5 hours. And I went, no, might not, might give that a miss. So stayed at home and watched all of the racing, because there was no shortage of racing on television, including the TCR from Tassie, and boy, was there some controversy there, and also some insane racing in that. Did you guys have a look at that?
I did. I
was watching Sebring.
I watched that too, but I missed what went on in race 2 because I was watching the end of Sebring, but I saw race 1 and 3, and that was the core drama for it. And of course, for those of you not across it, the race 1 had a Ryan Casher was unfortunately put into the wall just after the old grid area at Simmons Plains, and then after his recovery, there was another incident which caused a safety car. Like, they had to red flag the race for Ryan Casher's incident, and then there was a safety car after that. After some of the cars, somebody had a spin. I can't remember who, and so by the time they got to the end of the time certain, they'd only done 10 out of the 30 laps. Now, they allocated points as you'd normally would, until someone overnight, from one of the teams,
Gary
put
Rogers
in a little
Motorsport.
Protest. Sorry?
Gary Rogers Motorsport.
Put in a little bit of a protest saying, hang on, 10 laps out of 30 is less than 50%, and that means no points awarded.
Yes, it's pretty easy to work. It's pretty easy to work out. I mean, sort of, the original race 30 laps. Race actually run 10. How do we work that out?
The problem, the problem was the decision didn't come through until after race 2, and by that point, so several drivers who we'll point out that Tony D'Alberto won the first race yesterday, and then going into the second race, he had every right to expect he'll have a high grid position based on the back of the win, so doesn't have to push as hard in the reverse grid race and risk damage. And then all the points from race 1 disappear, and he didn't have a good result in race 2. So the fastest guy in the field is now buried on the 4th row of the grid, or even the 5th. I can't remember precisely. The grid then, race 3 then became progressive grid from race 2 with no points from race 1 to balance the running order, and that then had it was Tom Oliphant who had issues in his car, so issues in the race, I should say. So they had the very quick Hyundai on the front row of the grid, but alongside him was Dylan O'Keefe, who had some ongoing issues with the Audi, and sure enough, Oliphant went on to win the reverse grid race, and that put him on front row for the for the feature race. And oh yeah,
it was insane. It was one of the craziest
Well,
craziest races.
you then had the championship kind of split down the middle. There was all the guys on like the wall racing side of TCR who wanted the race one, who really wanted their race one points, and then you had the Gary Rogers side with on the like they're the two biggest teams in the championship, and both multi-car teams. Like Wall's got 3 cars. I think GRM in total have 5 or 6 in the series. So that's heading into the race. Everyone was angry, and then
And
we
it
then had the
showed.
first. Oh yeah, the first half of the race until the gap started to build up again. It was like you ever seen under 8s soccer? You have 20 kids chasing the ball around there's no positional play. There's just mass. It was like that. The cars were just rubbing. They were traveling as a pack of 8 of them at the front of the field, rubbing and racing and a little bit of punting, a little bit
And
of push, a little bit of
it was
shove.
like everybody had a turn it was like literally,
Yeah.
Zach Suter was in front at one stage. Dylan
Yep.
O'Keefe was in front at one stage. I think very briefly, Clay Richards, who
Clay
put in a
Richards,
great
yeah.
job, he ended up finishing second. Incidentally, Tom Oliphant, lovely guy. Interview with him tomorrow night in Pit Lane as well. From when we caught up with him at Sandown, didn't have a chance to run that, but talks about how he's moved to Australia and how he's got involved with Hyundai and his long term plans, and so he was in and about. The one person who wasn't in and about,
got shoved off.
there was
and then there was a huge thing on the back straight between Buchan and Suter.
And so, Josh Buchan went for a huge ride. Thankfully, didn't collect anything, but great, insane race. The person who wasn't involved in all of this, of course, was race 1 winner Tony D'Alberto, who basically went out on the formation lap and then just drove straight back into pit lane. Now, Wall Racing have protested, have appealed the decision on race 1, which sort of makes Tony D'Alberto's decision to spit the dummy and sit it out in the 3rd race a bit silly, because he will, if they're successful, he will get those points back from race 1 from winning that race, but he can't get any points at all from race 3. If he'd have started race 3, chances are he would have picked up at least some points. He's basically just those points are now gone forever. They can't give him points for a race he didn't start. So even if they are successful, he's only going to get back the points that he got for the race 1 win. He's not going to get anything at all for race 3. So if he'd have started, and because of how quick he was, and because of the chaos, as we saw, chances are he would have been up the pointy end anyway. But it was great racing. It was fabulous to watch. Those first 10 laps. It was just insane. And congratulations, as I said, Tom Oliphant we've got on the program. Dylan O'Keefe, who was our guest on the program last week, won a race, and Clay Richards. Really good to finish. Yeah, really good to see Clay come through, because it really is. You think about that Richards dynasty and all that, and you think, oh well, they'd be doing it sort of, they'd be very easy, but it really is a family operation. It really is, Steve and Clay and a few mates and all the rest of it, and the people from I think it's Melbourne Performance Centre. I think do the preparation on that car, but. It's very much a small operation, and that's his best result in TCR so far, and that will give him confidence going into the next round. Now, the next round is at Phillip Island in only a few weeks' time, and that Phillip Island round of the Speed Series is looking really, really good. You're going to have the TCR cars will be back there, Trans Am, of course, but you're also getting the opening round of the GT World Challenge Australia and the new dedicated GT4 series and the Michelin Challenge with the the Porsches.
All the Carrera Cup cars,
The Sprint Cup, the Sprint Cup. So it's
always
going to be
well supported and great racing.
Going to be a huge weekend of racing down at the resurfaced Phillip Island. And then they're going to close Phillip Island again, and they're going to make even more improvements. So get down there in a few weeks. It's in April. It's in early April, and I would definitely consider heading down there. It's going to be a really, really good weekend, and I hope they promote it well. I hope they go out of their way to promote it, because it's going to be great value for money. You're going to get all of those races. It's going to be terrific.
Formula Open that weekend as well? Or are they doing the other Phillip Island?
No, I'm not. I don't know. I don't think Formula Open are going to be. I'm not sure. I don't think they're going to be there. I didn't see them there. I haven't checked, but no, I don't. It doesn't ring a bell that they're going to be on the card.
I get. So that's that and the prototype series are the other ones that they grab my attention for.
Well, the prototype series is only doing a really limited calendar this year. They've only got 4 rounds. There's one at the Bend. I think their final round is at Phillip Island. I think it's part of Island Magic. I'm pretty sure they got 1 round at Phillip Island, another at Sydney Motorsport Park, and perhaps one up at Queensland Raceway. But I had a look, because I was wondering where they were, and it was like they're not starting until later on, much later on in the year, with a race at the Bend.
I miss the days of when supercarts were on the old Speed Series calendar as it was then. That was Radical Cup are going to be at Phillip Island. That's
okay. That's the prototype, right?
The other,
which always have a good, usually have a good field as well. So that'll give a bit of variety there. So it's going to be a fabulous meeting. Really,
Radicals
really
are wild.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
now I suppose we better wind this up. Now I'll just tell everybody, if you are in Melbourne, certainly be watching tomorrow night. We've got the 1998 Australian Formula 2 champion, David Bruce, joins us. David's an engineer. We can't tell you a lot of the stuff that David has done in the past with the Ford Motor Company and a few others, but he's an engineer. He joins us for our Grand Prix preview and talks about a few things, and also some of the stuff for those of you who watch the bonus show on YouTube. Yeah, be watching that, because there's some other interesting stuff from David as well. Also, our music tomorrow night. I've just got to say, we like to surprise you and have plenty of variety in our music.
You got Beyonce's country album?
This is far more diverse and unusual than Beyonce's country album, and probably a lot better too. Anna Morley joins us tomorrow night. Just please watch. I mean, just amazing. We just sat there, and as soon as she started, we just at the back and went, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So watch that tomorrow night. As we said, also the stuff that Roy took down at Adelaide, we've got that at the end of the show as well. So a big night tomorrow night on In Pit Lane, 9:30 on Channel 31 Melbourne, and also at 9:30 on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel with the extended program, bonus songs, bonus interviews, all that sort of thing. Also, coming up on Friday, if you're not going out to Albert Park, or even if you are going out to Albert Park, remember that Calder Park has their Fast Friday drag racing, off-street drag racing, and roll racing on the night. Big night on Friday night, because it's Grand Prix weekend. They're having a real sort of a real big push. I believe that there's some clown from the television is going to be on commentary over there on Friday night if his car gets him across the Calder Park. So come up and I'm not sure what I'm doing there. Peter said, come along and jump on the mic and let's do some stuff. So we'll do that. So that's this Friday night out at Calder Park Raceway if you want to sort of round up the day. And it's interesting because of the roll racing. There's some really, really interesting cars get out for the roll racing. A lot of very exotic cars that wouldn't look out of place at Sandown or Phillip Island or any of those tracks as well. Okay. So yes. What was it? Yes. Saturday's Thunderdome Drive Day. Entry still available. Saturday, just Thunderdome Drive Day. Entry still available. Roy will be there doing some videos. So there's some stuff there. Where we got vid car that rolled after Lukey Heights. Yeah, there was a lot of that. That was during the film. I didn't see that footage, but they're also just from Box. Yeah, Max to win. Dream Piastri, Ricardo, and Bottas. The Aussie, it would be, wouldn't it be the Aussie dream? And more shoeies than in the history of sport anywhere in the world. So, because I'm sure Valtteri would jump in as well and be a part of it. So that would be hilarious. That would be the dream. Any order of those three, but preferably, being. Just for the comedy value of the presentation would be fantastic. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Okay. Now the Thunderdome free for anyone who takes part, by the way. So that's for the Thunderdome Drive Day, is it? Check that out. Find out that, but that's an opportunity to go around. And if you haven't driven around, Richard, you've driven around the dome?
No, I haven't. I've worked on a number of cars that went around the dome. But
I've driven around. I've driven around a couple of times, and back in the day, just in road cars. And,
yes, that in road cars. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but not
boy, that banking. Yeah, that banking gets your attention when you're going there, and you've got to keep putting it in your head. I don't really need to brake around here. I can just keep accelerating. Fabulous stuff. Anyway, so we'll call that a day. Have a good. Roy's the video that Roy is doing. If you're one of the competitors or one of the entrants on the day, the video is free to entries are paid. The video is free. Okay. So there you go. So we sorted that out. So if you want to go out and you want a video record of you out at the Thunderdome running around on Saturday, find out more about that. I'm sure it's on Facebook, and you can find out all about the drive day there. Have a good weekend of. We didn't even get around to talking about Sebring, and God knows so much to talk about. But
the IndyCar $1 Million Challenge?
IndyCar $1 Million, we'll talk about that next week probably. Until then, and also the Easter Sprint Car Trail is coming up next week on In Pit Lane. Our guest will be, I haven't confirmed with him yet, but the Speedway Australia put up his hand on his behalf. Brett Melbourne will be joining us on next week's edition of In Pit Lane to talk sprint cars. Awesome. So be watching then. Okay, everybody, we will see you very soon. Until then, have a good Grand Prix weekend, and we'll see you next week for Full Course Yellow. And remember, tomorrow night, 9:30 Thursday, in Pit Lane. Until then, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye for now.
Good night.